Today, I really want to talk about some very practical ideas for putting together a vegan network, presumably within a specific corporation. And this topic interests me very much because it is really a foundation of so much else, and it is truly a low-hanging fruit. If we become intentional about it at first, it can easily be something later on that we just do even without thinking. Now, you may have different motivations for doing it. Maybe you just want to do it for yourself because it just drives you crazy that you work for a large corporation, for example, and you have yet to meet another vegan colleague. But maybe you also have an eye towards a greater outcome, such as you would like to make something happen in your workplace, and you think that having a group of vegan employees can become a vehicle for greater change. And in fact, that's exactly what we found when we did a survey to our members a year ago to ask them how vegan-friendly their companies were. One thing we found was that there was a very strong correlation between the workplaces that were very vegan-friendly and the workplaces that already had active vegan employee groups. Now, that doesn't sound like a complete coincidence because those active vegan employee groups are probably constantly pushing, constantly bringing this topic into the conversation and just reinforcing and kind of supporting each other in making an intentional ask. So this was a survey we did last year, and you can actually read about several conclusions about it on our website. One important thing to consider is that you don't have to think that you have to put together a huge group, even a small group. And this is what we absolutely found by talking to our members. Even if there is a vegan or plant-based employee group with several members, it can be powerful. And in fact, for most of people, it's not like they know a ton of vegans at their company. The majority of people that we asked, more than half, only knew a handful of vegans, and that was enough. That was enough to energize them, that was enough to mobilize them and kind of start that whole movement. So this is where I would like to actually stop and have a little bit of discussion with you right now. How many other vegans do you know where you work? And have you made effort to find more vegan colleagues actively? So this is where I'm going to actually stop sharing and turn back to our group. And I will start with Anastasia. Now, Anastasia works at the largest global company in the world. And it's actually one we're going to use as an example later today. So please tell us, do you know any other vegans where you work? And have you tried to actively look for more?
The answer is yes and yes, but there are some caveats. I certainly, ever since I started at Walmart 2 years ago, we use Slack, not Yammer, but Slack. And I did post pretty quickly in one of the channels asking, hey, do we have any people who are like into healthy eating or plant-based eating? And I was directed to a group that meets at the time face-to-face. They were meeting and they were calling Brown Bag Lunch Group. And they were mostly meeting to talk about healthy diets. There were some vegetarians there. There were some Whole30. So it was just a mixture of people, not necessarily vegans, but people looking into eating healthier. And I went to a couple of meetups. The group was pretty small, but they kept talking about creating their own channel. We need to create our own channel. We need to expand. And then, of course, COVID hit and things were kind of put on hold. But just recently, I posted an announcement also in the general Slack channel asking, hey, is anybody here plant-based or vegan? And I was directed to Northwest Arkansas Vegans group. We actually have a Slack channel that I didn't realize that was called Northwest Arkansas Vegans. And I found the channel. I got a little bit more involved in this. So we actually have more people now. And I asked, can we change the NW? Can we take Northwest Arkansas out and rename it to something else so it's more inclusive? Because we have team members in India. We have a lot of a big vegetarian population in India. And we have people in California. So Walmart is very distributed, many different offices. And I wanted this channel to be more inclusive. And we renamed it to Veg Foodies, which I thought was okay. You know, I was like, okay, well, that's pretty appealing. And I organized a quick meetup on Zoom. I think it was a month ago, and it was well received. So I'm trying to. It was pretty dormant channel. I'm actually trying to get it more active, and keep looking for more people. Actually, so yes, this is something that I'm always doing. Something in the back of my mind, because like you said, it is the largest corporation in the world, and there's bound to be more vegans than what I have already found, for sure.
That's perfect. Let's ask one more audience member, and I am going to pick Randy Dolan, who also works for a very large engineering corporation in the South. Randy, please tell us, do you know any other vegans, vegetarians, plant-based advocates at your work? And have you ever looked for more of them?
So yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I do know a few other vegans where I work, but interestingly, they became vegan for environmental reasons. And I've also tried to reach out and find some other vegans, and I've had short encounters with vegans that work for the same company but in other locations. But as far as like getting anything actually going, like Anastasia's got, I haven't had much success with that. But I just try to help encourage people to see the benefits of plant-based eating.
Excellent. Great. So now I would like to start by actually doing a little demo on LinkedIn on how anybody can search for other vegans across the entire LinkedIn user population. Let me please share again. I do want to say two things. First, I currently have a premium account, and I am not 100% sure if what I'm going to show you is available to everybody. I hope it is. And second thing is, LinkedIn keeps changing its functionality. So for example, this search functionality itself has really been evolving over time. But I do want to show you how I search for vegans in particular corporations or particular locations. Is pretty handy. So the first thing you do, you are just on the homepage of LinkedIn, and you just put the keyword vegan. The second thing you do is you select people, and then you simply just choose a company and or location. So let's actually use Walmart as an example. That's all I have to do. And now it's going to give me the results of people with the vegan keyword who work at Walmart. I got 13 results, and it's actually really nice because in the results, I directly see what it is, in what context they mention the word vegan. So for example, Bree, I think I can pretty safely assume she's vegan. She mentions vegan cooking in her skills section.
I know the second one. I actually met her in person, so I'm very familiar with Lauren.
Perfect. Now here I get tipped off a little bit. Maybe I don't see such a clear indication that Lauren is vegan, but I see that we have two connections. Both of them are vegans. A couple more examples. A lot of people indicate their veganism in their LinkedIn profile in a skills section. Others mention some kind of project, or they just mention it in their general introduction. Now, of course, just because results come up, you don't want to just assume that person is vegan, because it could be somebody who just is mentioning in passing that they have worked somewhere where they were, catering to vegans, meat eaters, paleo, and so on. So do pull up their profiles and actually double check that the word vegan is mentioned in the right context. So very similarly, instead of searching by company, you can also search for vegans in a specific location. You would basically follow the same steps here, but then here, let's say you do China. I believe, based on my prior experience, that if you just select China, all of these other more specific locations automatically get included. So we get 240 people who are located in China who mentioned the word vegan. And then you can just kind of go through these results and look for specific people you might want to connect with. And from there, of course, you can just connect with them, or if these individuals work for your company, you could also reach out through them through your own employee network.
It's very interesting where your cursor is. Austin Chan. He's vegan sustainability director at the leather industry company. It's very
I know, and I can just about guarantee you that I contacted Austin. Anybody else who, you know, looks interesting like that, I do reach out to these people every month to invite them to our network. And many of them are very excited to find out that we exist. But yeah, it's absolutely mind-blowing how many vegans there are out there on LinkedIn who work for major corporations in high positions. Also, there are lots of vegans, of course, who just don't happen to mention that they are vegan in their LinkedIn profile. And those are the people that would have to look for through the other means. So now let's return back to our original presentation. And frankly, I do want to start with something that is so stupidly simple, but it works incredibly. It is a magic phrase you can use to find other vegans in your office. It took me like 10 years to try this for the first time, and I was amazed how well this worked. It's so simple. Literally, the question is, do you know of any other vegans in the office? And you can insert this phrase into any kind of small talk, any kind of conference call, any kind of interaction with other people. I don't know why this is so awkward sometimes. It definitely felt awkward for me before I first tried it, but then I was just amazed to find that people absolutely volunteered other vegans that they knew about, even people I already was familiar with. I just had no idea they're vegans. And this is how you can truly supercharge your network just by asking this simple question. So this is just kind of the foundation of this topic, but I actually want to share with you 7 other tips of looking for vegans at your company. Tip number 1, and very interestingly, Anastasia already spoke about this earlier in her introduction story. The first tip is really find out if your company has any kind of social platform. For a lot of companies, it's Yammer. I think Slack is now becoming quite popular. And just look through the directory of the employee-led groups to see if there is already a vegan, vegetarian, or plant-based group. It's okay if the group is dormant. We actually know of some success stories among our members where they actually revived the dormant group and turned into something powerful. And if your company does have a social platform, but there is no vegan group, just go ahead and start one. Usually you don't need any kind of permission. You can just start one, and then it can be completely passive. You can just allow other people to find this group and contact you. So pretty simple. The second tip is also something that Anastasia already mentioned, which this is amazing, is if there is no vegan group, but if there is kind of an active general forum, just simply make a post there, putting a question out there if there are other vegans. And I think actually I may have stolen this story from Randy, because I think Randy, you actually mentioned recently that you dropped this note in your company social platform and had some results. Also,
yeah, that's what I did.
Excellent. Well, I am glad these tips should already be intuitive. And sometimes they're so obvious, they're in front of us, and we just don't even, think about doing them. Also, hopefully once we return to offices, you should also be able to think about other ways how you can make this note available to your colleagues. Like, do you, for example, have some kind of message board in the lunchroom or in some kind of common area? Nothing wrong with making a post here. Hey, are there any other vegetarians, vegans, plant-based foodies out here? So that's tip number 2. The third one, if you are going to remember one thing today, please remember this one. Make sure that other people know that you are vegan. And this holds whether if we return to normal and start going back to the office, start traveling, but it even applies now in this kind of remote Zoom work environment. So for example, if you are either traveling or on Zoom, wear something that has the word vegan on it. It can be accessory, it can be a t-shirt. The second one is fantastic if you are, for example, traveling, going through the airport, or sitting in a conference room around the table where people can see the back of your laptop. This next one is kind of back to our current environment where we are all having meetings through Zoom. There are a couple different things you can do on your laptop that people will see, especially if you are hosting a lot of calls and doing a lot of screen sharing. You can either have some screensaver that has the word vegan or something, you know, vegan oriented on it, or incidentally, you can have a lot of bookmarked vegan pages in your internet search engine that people can see whenever you share the screen. I actually didn't realize that that was the case, but I, of course, have a lot of vegan leaders bookmarked pages. And I was actually hosting a conference call, and I was contacted by somebody, very high-level person, who asked me if I was vegan because she was also a vegan, and she realized that by me sharing my screen and having that bookmark page there. So it can be something that doesn't really require any extra effort. It's very subtle, and people who are vegan will notice it, and others will be totally fine with it. Finally, this is particularly relevant to Zoom conference calls. You can have, you know, of course, any kind of background, but if there is a way that you can have a Zoom background that has something vegan in it, please do so. I think Anastasia has a fantastic one, just a Vegan Leaders logo behind her. So these are just some ideas for how you can just make sure people realize you are vegan and they can contact you yourselves, or they can basically do the networking for you.
Darina, I was showing my my laptop here. I have a V on my laptop there, and I'll probably add one more sticker that says "runs on plants" or something like that.
Absolutely, you know, whatever fits your style. It can be funny, it can be very, you know, professional, it can be cheeky. You know, it really doesn't matter. It's the right people will notice it, and that's really kind of the audience you are targeting. So now let's move on to tip number 4. This one is somewhat similar to the first couple, but the difference is that this is just a little more intentional, and it's more of a big bang. So what you could do if you, for example, don't have a lot of situations with sort of small talk with lots of different groups, what you can do is that you can just kind of make a point of emailing your super networker colleagues and asking them if they know of any other vegans or vegetarians at a company. I would definitely, you know, try to pick some colleagues who are well connected. And if you think that this is kind of awkward and random, when it is not awkward and random is around the beginning of the year, where a lot of people just have new resolutions and sort of supercharge their networking outreach. And this is a way how you can basically outsource this work to other people and get probably a lot of vegan connections that way. Tip number 5. Now this is a little more specialized, and it would make sense if you are close to people who usually organize employee holiday parties or any kind of events. Now this is, you know, not so, I guess, applicable right now, but hopefully it will be back soon. If you know people who usually put together employee events, simply ask them if anybody besides you has ever opted for a vegan option in the past. And, you know, you don't have to just kind of randomly email them about it. If you're talking to that person and complimenting them on the last holiday party, you can compliment them on the great vegan option that was offered and say, hey, by the way, I can't be the only person who requested the vegan options. Who else is vegan that you know of? So now, tip number 7. This is one that anybody can do, and this is an excellent one for people who are maybe more introverted and they, you know, just are less comfortable just approaching people, asking them for other vegans. You can simply Google the word vegan plus your company. And what's really cool is not only can you potentially find names of other vegans who are most likely going to be high-profile, public-facing people, sometimes you may find actually articles that randomly mention that your chief information officer or the president of such and such segment happen to mention that they are vegan or plant-based in an article, and that gives you basically a very, very powerful ally to your initiative and very powerful excuse to email that person. Also, when you do this kind of search, you can stumble upon some cool articles or some other news sources that talk about maybe vegan initiatives that your company has already done. So particularly, of course, the big consulting firms are more likely to have put together some white papers or some studies on the emergence of the vegan movement. So this vegan search kind of accomplishes two goals in one. Also play around with the keywords, use plant-based, use, vegetarian, any other plant protein if you work for a food company. And that way you can get a lot more results. I recently actually tried this for my own company, and I was absolutely blown away that a colleague I knew for a long time who was actually long pushing back and kind of making fun of my vegan lifestyle must have recently gone vegan and actually did an interview where this fact was mentioned. So this is exactly the kind of thing that you can randomly find about pretty important people at your company who are now vegan. And that brings us to tip number 7. This is one that is particularly applicable if you work for a company that dominates a certain location. So for example, if you work for Amazon, there's a good chance that a large portion of the workforce is in Seattle. If you work for Dell, a large portion of the workforce is in Austin. So what you can do that you simply go on Facebook or on Meetup and join a vegan group in that city. And then once you are in the group, just keep asking who else within the group works for the company. There's a very good chance that a lot of people who are in that vegan Facebook or Meetup group actually work for your company. And this is the way you can actually find them. I have done this trick if I wanted to really boost the vegan leaders in corporate management membership in particular locations where I felt like there's a huge company somewhere and we don't really seem to have a lot of members that came to us. So this kind of allowed me to do some searching myself and identify additional vegans who became a really great addition to our group. So these were really the 7 ways how you can put together a list of vegan contacts at your company. But really, it shouldn't stop there. So what do you do next? I mean, we could spend an entire separate livecast on this topic, but I just really want to leave you with this key idea, and that is make sure to turn your random loose list of vegan contacts into an actual group. And it is not a difficult process. It basically should kind of follow these 4 general steps. This one is probably the most important one, and that is that there should be some mechanism for all these people to actually become members of the group. It should be the vegan contacts that you already learned about, and you can just ask them directly to join this group. But also, ideally, you want to kind of put this group out there to be public and allow other people to find the group and become members. So how do you do this? If your company already has some kind of platform for employee-led groups or employee resource groups, just basically tap into that platform. If your company has a very active Yammer account, that's a great solution. Otherwise, it could be something on the company intranet, or maybe you need to reach out to somebody and ask for assistance, maybe your marketing department or your IT department. And usually, people are happy to help. They are happy to provide you some information about how you could actually make this happen. But basically, you just don't want this to not have kind of this firm mechanism for people to continuously join the group and be part of that group. Once you do this, then this next thing, it may sound kind of cute, but it actually really can energize the group. You should name your group. It can be veg foodies, like we heard earlier, or it can be plant-based living at Ford. It can be vegans at Microsoft. This was done in so many variations in other groups. It really kind of depends on the culture of your company. I think it's kind of a good idea if you're at a company where maybe the vegan and plant-based movement is not as strong, you should maybe kind of go with something softer, like plant-based allies, vegan, vegetarians, and plant-based fans. Basically anything that opens the group to other people who may not consider themselves vegans, but would be interested to be, be part of this effort. The name should be snappy. It should be kind of something that gets noticed, and it should be something also that the company would eventually want to put in a newsletter or in an announcement. Then it really helps if your group has some kind of purpose. The purpose doesn't have to be grand. It can be, something like a place for vegan employees to come together and share ideas. Now that's sort of the bottom, but it's still more powerful than not having any purpose at all. Because the thing is that usually, people nowadays are very busy, and whenever they are asked to do something, they're asking, what is the point of this? What is the goal of this? If you are really creating this group because you want to eventually make a specific ask, drive some kind of initiative, you could also state the purpose of the group that is a little more strategic. So this can be actually a fun exercise. It can be something that you do on your own, but it could also be something that you make an activity with your group. It could be a very fun thing for your 5 vegans that you met at your company to actually get together and brainstorm how you should name the group and what that group should be really about. And to be honest, that overlaps a little bit into our 4th bucket, which should be, there should be something for your group to do. Even if it's a small group, even if it's just a Yammer group, it makes a huge difference if that group has something to kind of work towards. People, even the busy corporate people, like activities and they like events. So those would be sort of 2 things that could make a difference and could actually give the group members an incentive to actually engage. If your group just kind of exists out there and people just randomly, post recipes or ideas, I would say you lose momentum. But if there is even something that, every 2 months this group should meet for a meeting that has a purpose, it gives it a little more life. So this is really the blueprint that you can follow anytime on your own pace and put your own spin on it. But this is basically the steps through which other people went who ended up creating a really large employee group for vegans. We know of several companies now that have vegan groups that have over 100 members, and those groups are truly at the table when company decisions are discussed. So it really can be something that starts very small, and before you know it, there is a powerful vegan voice body at your company. So I hope this information left you with some food for thought. I really hope you're going to pick at least one of those tips today, and you're actually going to reach out and make a goal of finding one other vegan at your company this week. And if you enjoyed this, we still have a couple more live casts before the year end. Now, this is the one that we covered today, but some of these other topics are topics we haven't covered yet this year, and I think this next one will definitely be of interest to many. Please remember that you do have to register for a live cast if you'd like to participate live, and here is just the link, Vegan Leaders Events live cast. They are always free, and we always do record them and make them available. So with that, thank you so much. I hope you learned something today, and please let me know right now any questions or any thoughts.
This is AJ. I did have a question. I noticed on LinkedIn you posted something about the leader group, how many, for instance, at each company, how many people there were. Is there any way that we can have access to that list, or is that out there? Because I saw there was 15 people at my company, and I'm wondering who they are.
Well, we can't quite make it out there. We don't really have a great mechanism for doing that. That's actually why we are talking about working towards a member app where something like this could be offered to you very easily. For now, you would just basically have to reach out to one of us and ask for that list. This list is public information on LinkedIn. You basically just log everybody who joins our group into an Excel spreadsheet and capture their public LinkedIn information, including their employer. And
Okay.
that's how we know that those 15 employees are. So please just contact me or contact Randy, contact Gail, any of us, and we will just give you those names.
Okay, thank you.
This is the perfect question. And, you know, this is the kind of activity that the Vegan Leaders is absolutely encouraging. All right. Well, there is a great question from Gail. Can we provide some examples of events or activities that a new vegan employee group might take on? You know, it depends on whether we come out of COVID soon. I think for now, you know, it would probably have to be some kind of virtual activity. You know, it could be an activity that is sort of inward facing, that is for the benefit of the group members, or it could be an activity that the members of the group are working to really do an outreach to the overall company. It really depends on what people are interested in. So, you know, I think the first activity could be a meeting where you discuss what kind of activities the group would be interested in doing. It should be consistent with the purpose of the group. So if the purpose of the group is, for example, to achieve such and such specific vegan accommodations, then, you know, the activity shouldn't be so much to hang out and talk about vegan movies. It should be strategizing about how to achieve that larger goal. You know, another example could be just to put together basically a plant-based education event. We have some people in the audience today who have been very successful at bringing guest speakers to their company or starting a program at the company. And it can be, you know, pretty low organizing effort. You just basically need to get a permission and you need to find out some kind of speaker who would just show up and do a presentation through Zoom. So these are just couple ideas. It really depends on the specific company. It depends on the opportunities, and, you know, it does have to reflect the interests of the group. If you want to be the group leader, you can absolutely guide them towards something that you really believe would strategically make sense at the company. But at the end of the day, you know, the hope is that the group will actually help you, and they will help you more if they are interested in the particular selected initiative. So that was a really great question. Sid is asking for the list of the Deloitte members. Absolutely, we'll do so. So Accenture, absolutely. And we will share this recording and you will see the 7 tips there again. You know, this particular livecast, you know, this was a very traditional how-to PowerPoint presentation. So we might actually, in this case, also make this deck available on our website. We still have to figure that out. Excellent. And, you know, Steve Rabin is making a kind of raising a great question. He would like to connect with other vegan accountants. You know, that's absolutely another angle to this. Maybe you're not looking so much for vegans at your firm, but you're looking for vegans in a particular type of work. That's another thing we track in the Vegan Leaders member database, because we do want to help members find other vegan accountants or find other vegan lawyers, other vegan, you know, airline engineers. And it's, that information is just out there. And I think it's very powerful to connect with people with whom you share something else very deeply, besides just your vegan interest. Good stuff. Well, there was some really nice questions asked. Anything else?
Dorena, let me just throw out there, you kind of said this, but part of that putting yourself out there, making it known, is including something in your LinkedIn profile. You know, you can search for people, but you can also make it so people can find you. And I'll give an example, and this actually goes back to what Steve was just asking. Somebody found me as a professional in commercial real estate. I work for a very small company. There have been other vegans at my company, but there aren't currently. So, and I know everybody at my company. There are 30 people. It's not that hard. But within commercial real estate, somebody found me as a vegan in that industry, and that through a LinkedIn search. So that is another option on LinkedIn to search across an industry. And during I'll be letting you know more about that. Actually, the guy who contacted me, we had some conversations, and we're hatching plans. So we had some collaborations going on.
You know, this is excellent. I'm so glad you mentioned this, Michael. Let me please share with you guys actually one guide we put together on this very topic. I almost forgot we did it, but I was looking for something else. I actually found it. It would be under advice and guides. And we actually put out an article last year about smart and work appropriate ways how you can put your vegan identity out on LinkedIn. So there are, you know, a couple different ways you can do that. One that actually is very popular is saying you are vegan in your skills. Or you can just be a member of a vegan group, such as Vegan Leaders in Corporate Management or other vegan groups. And that way you are just basically stating a networking interest, and you don't have to, you know, justify it or anything, and it still will come up in the vegan searches. I personally really like this, especially for people who are, you know, who don't want to just kind of, who feel that the veganism is really kind of a private matter and should not really be part of the LinkedIn work profile. You can simply mention some kind of accomplishment. Like, for example, if you're involved, if you had some kind of a function at the vegan society or a vegan committee, or you were part of a vegan project, you can just mention it as a matter of fact statement. And that way it kind of accomplishes both things. So last thing maybe I'll mention here is, you know, some people just hesitate to use the word vegan, and they will say, you know, plant-based. I think that's fine, but if you are doing keyword search on LinkedIn, if you actually search for plant-based, you get a lot of false results. I mean, I have done this many times, and basically every time when somebody worked at a manufacturing plant, that will pop into the results. So it's kind of good to keep in mind that if you need to, for example, soften it, you can say plant-based / vegan, and that way, you know, people are still going to pick that up, but you are softening it if you are concerned with sort of how it's perceived. So, hope this was a good addition to what Michael said. It is, I think, really important for us to make sure to mention our veganism on LinkedIn, because just like you might be searching for other vegans at your company, there could be other people searching for you. It's really a two-way street.
And Darina, to add to what Michael said, you can also put a V in a circle next to your profile, next to your name on LinkedIn profile, actually. And it's really easy to do. Right here, you see this V. You can just copy paste it from my profile if you want, and just add it and paste it into the name right here. So I thought it was going to be complicated, but it's very easy. And just save. When I did that, I did have several people reach out to me on LinkedIn after they saw that V very quickly.
Oh, that's terrific. You know, and it absolutely helps. Like, for example, you know, I do search for vegans at other companies. It's crystal clear if they have that little V next to their name. I know I don't have to go through their profile to really prove that they are truly vegan. It's very handy.
And the skills,
So I'm wondering,
vegan in the skills is awesome tip, actually, Darina. I just did that. I didn't know you could do that.
and is that little V with a circle searchable?
That I don't know, actually, but people notice that.
Yeah, it's not searchable by itself. I think you would have to literally search for those characters. That's kind of a neat idea. Usually I found that a lot of people who put that V next to their name, they also say something else in their profile. But then that little V provides an extra quick evidence.
I think it is searchable. I was able to search. And I think something came up. I have somebody with a V here, I think it is searchable. I see a bunch of V's right here. So that's good news.
Neat. Only 500 people though. That surprises me.
It's probably a limit. Maybe there's a result limit. I don't know.
Excellent. Well, so hope this was helpful, and please as always, our goal is to really make sure that, you know, this is not just entertaining or interesting, but you actually do take at least one action after this. So I think in this case, the action is pretty simple. It should be just find one other vegan connection this week. Whatever method you use and whatever you take with it, taking a small first step is powerful, because then you kind of realize that, oh my God, this was so easy, and this is actually, you know, instantly rewarding. And then you can hopefully go from there. Hopefully we can see more success stories about somebody creating a powerful vegan employee groups at a company. One of the most successful examples we are aware of is actually one from many, many years ago, and that's the vegetarians at Microsoft. That was the first huge vegan employee groups we learned about. And it was so successful that the company actually co-opted that group and basically started to sponsor it, to the point where new hires in their orientation would actually be told about the vegetarians at Microsoft group. So, you know, that can be something you work towards later on. It shouldn't be something to stop you from just creating an informal vegan employee groups behind the scenes at the beginning. Because a lot of people feel like, wow, the company will never go for it. I will have to jump through so many hoops and I'll probably be rejected. The company will never want to have an official, you know, vegan group the way it may have some other diversity groups. But that's okay. It's always, you know, fine to create this kind of as an informal employee-led or employee-oriented group. And, you know, if it takes off and if it actually starts making some good things, oftentimes the company actually approaches you. Great. Well, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for to my lovely co-hosts, Anastasia and Gail. And we very much look forward to seeing you guys on the next livecast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.